Hey, sorry guys. Hi, John. Hi, Florida. Hi, Sky. Glad you found me. Let's give it a minute and see if other people hop over here. I'm going to text Kelly or I'll just message her. Okay, I kind of knew that that was going to happen because of that interview getting flagged or whatever. But this last part, I came up with myself. So my own content, not an interview that probably belongs to someone. So we're just gonna wait for people to come in and we can go through the last part. Karen, thanks for finding me. Screaming Daisies, hello. Sarah, Melmac, hi. So I think that we got a good representation for those who got to catch it of Kurt and the way he kind of was sounding. And again, this isn't to say that people can't put on a mask and stuff like that. I obviously know that. Thank you, Desiree. But in my opinion, and I'm not sure about chat, but he did seem happy. He's a good father. He does have demons that he's battling, but I think that he was going to be taking the steps to work towards fixing them. And part of fixing them is getting rid of his wife, who obviously had her own issues. Hi, CDT. Yeah, I agree. His mindset, he seemed like he was in a good spot. He was talking a little bit negatively about fame, being frustrated with the press, and that's to be expected. He became a rising star so quick that that could happen to anybody. Um, Britney Spears is an example of an extreme case of huge stardom. She was younger than Kurt, but still, Kurt's very impressionable. You're in your 20s. He's a father now, so that puts a whole new dynamic on things. How many do we have in here now? Hold on, my phone. Once I show you pictures and videos of him being a father, too, I mean, it just speaks volumes, in my opinion, because you can just see the pure delight and happiness on his face, and she is the main reason why um, he's even kind of with Courtney for as long as he ends up being with her. And by springtime in March, he's telling Courtney, I want a divorce. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to be referencing a documentary slash film that is called Soaked in Bleach. And I'm also going to be referencing a book that both include the private investigator's point of view, information, opinion, all that. So we will kind of reference media sources and news sources, magazines, stuff like that. But in a lot of the cases, you're going to see that what those mainstream media sources were putting out was just not true. I like to see the quotes coming directly from them, and we'll go through that too to kind of feel things out for this case. But there is a book for this, and it's called Love and Death, and I plan on using that also for my source of information. All right, so I'm going to start to play this. Hopefully, you guys can hear it.
Was Listen, Kurt escaped from rehab. He bought a shotgun, and I just feel like something bad is gonna happen, okay?
In the middle of all this conversation, she keeps talking about how suicidal he is and how everybody thinks he's going to commit suicide.
Everybody knows it. Everybody thinks he's gonna die.
Hold on a second. Now, if he bought a shotgun and he's suicidal, then dealing with this credit card problem, that's the least important thing we could help you with.
Okay, well, that's where I want you to start.
I didn't see him as being particularly different emotionally from any of us.
I think people tended to read him wrong just because he was a quiet person.
I don't see Kurt as being depressed at all. I see him as being optimistic.
Gave me a lot of hope, you know, to hopefully someday get out of this area with my music.
Eventually.
So when that guy says get out of this area, they are in a smaller town. I guess it's got a high poverty rate, but Kurt made it out of there. So he had nothing that was really surrounding him that was, you know, he was able to, you know, get a nice house and live sort of a regular life as far as he could buy whatever he needed, and it was much different than what he had grown up with. And he knew that he was providing for his daughter and she was going to have a better upbringing.
Start playing acoustic guitars and be thought of as a singer and a songwriter rather than a grunge rocker, you know, because then I might be able to take advantage of that when I'm older and sit down on a chair and play acoustic guitar like Johnny Cash or something, you know, and it won't be a big joke, but, you know.
So he's talking about here, he kind of lights up and he's saying, I want to learn things outside of just, you know, the grunge scene. Like, he knows at this point, being a father, that he can't always just be a grunge rocker. He's thinking in the future. He's saying, I want to play acoustic and I want to do, you know, Johnny Cash style. He seems very much like he lit up again, and he's expressing hopes and dreams of what he wants to do in the future. And of course, the demons are always going to be pulling him back. But the other thing that's pulls him back is that chemical relationship, the chemical romance that he has with his wife, who by the end of his life, he's trying to get away from.
Who knows?
As I was getting ready to fly to Seattle, Courtney.
So this part I'm just going to mute just in case, but it's basically Tom Grant, and he's explaining that once Courtney hired him, and for those who are new to this, like CDT, Courtney Love hires Tom Grant, the private investigator, because she's under she wants him to think that she needs to locate him and that he's missing because he leaves a rehab. So that's the pretenses that Tom thinks he's like working for Courtney Love under. So at this point, he's meeting up with Kurt Cobain's best friend, Dylan, and they're trying to find Kurt. He left the rehab and nobody's really seen him in the inner circle. And it's rumored that during this time, I mean, this is before cell phones, he's been reaching out and trying to reach out to Courtney, or people close to her, to let them know that he's okay, but he's not there anymore. But it's spun as if, you know, he's missing. So this is Tom meeting with Dylan, who's explaining to him that, in his opinion, he does not think that Kurt is suicidal. Because the other thing is that Courtney told Tom that he had just bought a gun, and Dylan helped him buy the gun. He registered it in his name. And the reason why he registered it in his name is prior to everything that ended up happening, the month earlier, around, I believe, March 18th, they get into a domestic dispute, Kurt and his wife. And in my opinion, I think it was the early days of him trying to say, I'm leaving you, I want a divorce. Something had happened in Rome, which he tried to break it to her, and that was March 3rd. So that will require its own discussion. But he basically was telling her in this argument that he was ready to move on with his life. And Dylan's basically saying, I don't know why he married her. You know, they're very different. He's not suicidal. He just has a gun because he was afraid of intruders, because people were getting crazy as far as fans. And we don't want another John Lennon incident. So Kurt was very familiar with guns and he wanted protection. They were trying to peep in the windows and stuff like that. So the gun had nothing to do with any sort of feelings that he was feeling emotionally. It had more to do with protection for the baby, and the fact that the cops took his guns on the night that Courtney falsely said that he was suicidal and he was locked in a closet with a gun. Come to find out, he was not locked in the closet with the gun. He was in a closet, which was in a huge house. I'm assuming a little bit bigger than a closet, but he had to get away from Courtney, who was acting irate at the time. I'm guessing they're trying to end things, and sometimes it gets a little heated when people try to end things with somebody who doesn't want it to end. So she calls and gives this whole false statement to the Seattle police that he has a gun. Come to find out, and if you look into it, the gun wasn't on Kurt in the closet. It was in the house, and it gets confiscated as protocol. But it's just the first example of Courtney falsely saying a narrative involving suicide. And you're probably like, well, why did she not get in trouble for doing a false police report? She, and we'll get into, knows people in the Seattle Police Department.
Courtney Love says Cobain had first written a suicide note to her, which said, in part, "It's not fun for me anymore. I can't live this life."
I've never heard Kurt talk about suicide or anything. He's always seemed happy around me, you know.
So the MTV News is already quoting Courtney Love and already going with whatever information she is giving them. Florida, that was him popping 50 roofies, didn't happen at all, actually. That was another lie that Courtney had told the media and spun it. And you won't find her talking about that incident as suicide until after he dies. So before he died, that incident was reported and explained by the doctor as an accidental overdose. Like, he's partying it up. And I actually have something to read on that incident. I guess we can do a little peep of it. It's sort of an in-depth ordeal, but oh great, my phone just died. Basically, Florida, that was debunked. They got in contact since his death. They found out that he didn't swallow 50. The doctor explains that, and that was just a lie that Courtney told. It is even rumored that his nose was bleeding, and there were signs that he possibly was forced to drink the champagne or swallow the pills once he had already kind of started passing out. The roofies, like you said, they're roofies. So that's like a date rape drug, as they call it. So that drug was actually prescribed to his wife, suspect number one. And I believe the first attempt on his life, which we'll get into. But everyone close to him, as you can see, is saying, nope, Kurt wasn't suicidal, etc.
You know, quiet, shy, but definitely happy. He never hinted to me that he was depressed.
His music and his lyrics kind of portrayed a darker side to some of his emotions, but I think that was kind of glorified.
So I'm tired of people thinking I'm trying to put too much meaning into my lyrics, you know.
So once again, he's had to explain, don't put so much meaning into his lyrics. That's the second interview that we have in this little short thing that is him saying the same thing over and over. Don't put meaning into the lyrics. This is Rolling Stone magazine before his death. And, you know, they say in that album, In Utero, he says things that sound, you know, dark. And I guess there's a lyric and it says, I hate myself, I want to die. And they ask him, like, how literal do you mean that? And you see it right here. How literal do you mean that? And his response is, you know, as much of a joke as it can be, basically, or something like that. And it's continued right here, as literal as a joke can be. Nothing more. And it kind of goes back to this whole, who would have known that this was a reoccurring thing that he's had to explain in his career, the lyrics. His wife would know that these lyrics do sound bad, they do look bad. So that just kind of is convenient as far as her spinning a narrative how she wants it, because already it looks like it's an issue. And it says right here, you know, everyone can read it. I've never been happier in my life. And him being a father, I think, even though the demons were chasing him, I think that he ultimately wanted to get clean. And it got to that point where he was ready to. And the stress of the divorce, I think, interfered with that. And I think everyone can kind of understand. They say that divorce is as closely traumatic as a death in the family. So he's done with Courtney, but at the same time, of course, it's never easy breaking up, and him failing for his daughter. He might have felt, you know, depressed about that, but he was ready to just leave her. He wasn't ready to leave the world. He's ready to go to rehab, but she wanted him to go with her. And she wanted this whole elaborate in the media, like a couple goes to rehab together. And he's like, no, we're done. Like, well, I'm going, and I'm going by myself. And she basically said, you have to go or you'll never see their daughter again. So there's just a lot of stress and mixed in with the fame stress and, you know, intruders, people peeping in his window. Like, it was just too much for him. And I just don't think that that means that he was going to harm himself. I think that he was just clearly upset, and people kind of knew that he was going through a hard time, and they'll say that when they seen him, he looked rough. And that solely has to do from March up until his death. People who seen him from that time period were saying that he didn't look good, but that's because of the stress that he was under. But he was ready to move on, and he had hopes and plans, and talked about it, as we'd seen, in the future. And right here, this Rolling Stone magazine was, you know, pretty close to the time of his death, and he says he's never been happier.
Rather chillingly, Love says that 3 of Cobain's uncles had also committed suicide. She calls it the Cobain curse.
When you hear Courtney spinning this whole elaborate timeline about how he tried to commit suicide.
So she tells the media, as you just seen, that his family has like a suicide curse that ends up being debunked. His uncle and the grandfather, whatever, they didn't die from suicide. It was other related accidents, actually. One involving an accidental, like, gunshot, self-inflicted, and then the other one was like falling drunk or something like that. I mean, it was not self-harm, but Courtney spun it that way. And as you've seen, MTV reported it that way.
Suicide before, and he was talking about suicide to everybody he knew. That just seems to be fiction.
There may be 1 or 2 lines in a song here and there, but I swear to God, brother, it's really not that as much as it seems.
So that was the end. I'm curious what you guys think of, you know, his state of mind, everything that we could kind of talk about as far as where his head was at and stuff like that. Sorry. I just don't think that it was headed in the direction that Courtney portrayed it. And I think that it's important that everyone needs to keep that in mind. Everything you thought you heard in this case, just like other cases, we end up finding out that's not what really happened. And that's just what the media was saying at the time. We see it in the Watts case and in Scott Peterson case. There's just a lot of misinformation and misreporting for whatever reason. This one we know on numerous occasions, they'll even credit Courtney Love, or we contacted Love and Love told us, and it's like over and over. And she is the source. She is the one who can spin it this way. And we've already caught her in the lie saying that his uncle's, there's a Cobain curse and he has a history in his family of self-harming. That's just not the case. Hi, B. Wayne. Oh, thanks for stopping by. Oh, yeah, you're going to Denver. Well, have a good trip. We did 2 lives, by the way, in case, I don't know if the other one will even show up, but we got copyright struck because of the interview, but the last part here was fine, so. But anyways, I'm just curious what you guys are thinking in chat. Sarah Princess, I don't think he was suicidal. He was murdered, in my honest opinion. I think so too. Kurt didn't kill himself. I agree. Hi, C-Dub. Yeah, the Utero album is just iconic. Yeah, she does look like she might own a brown bikini. But yeah, they're like Mrs. Kurtcobain said, Courtney waited 2 hours before she even called the paramedics in Paris after the pills were given up. Yeah, there is just lots of detail on that incident that is just disturbing. And the timeline of that is one of them for sure. I can actually just read through some notes. Okay. And then if Florida's still here, this is for him. Okay. So the Rhone incident, probably the most significant event leading up to Kurt's death, happened in early March 1994. It was actually March 3rd. This has been known as the Rome incident. Kurt had been on tour leading up to this event. However, he had been ill for some time and decided he needed to cancel the end of the tour. This would cost Nirvana hundreds and thousands of dollars. He was diagnosed with bronchitis and was told to rest. So that obviously, I'm reading this and I'm realizing like bronchitis, you know, that's a respiratory illness already, that his breathing wasn't normal at this point if he's that sick. He arranged to meet up with Courtney and his baby daughter Frances and their nanny Michael Callie DeWitt at a hotel in Rome. So we're going to hear that name over and over. Michael Callie DeWitt. They call him Callie. He is one of Courtney Love's minions, basically. She took him in as a teen. He was just a groupie type. You know, he followed the bands, kind of a lost teen. And she took him under her wing. And it was also somebody that she had hooked up with. A lot of people that they surrounded themselves with were actually Courtney's ex-boyfriends and stuff like that. So just imagine how that made Kurt feel. And this Kelly guy is one of the nannies that they have for their kid. And allegedly Kurt never really trusted him and, you know, didn't really want him around. But he was there for the Rome incident, which is strange. So it was the first night actually that he had met up with Courtney and Callie. And this is when the Rome incident happened. So it says during their first night there, Kurt overdosed on his wife's Rohypnol pills, which is a date rape drug. Uh, she had the prescription, and it was combined with champagne. He basically was in a coma for 20 hours. He had just survived. Again, there are many inconsistencies with this event. Firstly, Kurt didn't drink, so why champagne? And this, I think, has something to do with the fizzing, like the bubbles in there. It's just my opinion and my, suspicions. I think that has something to do with dissolving the pills, possibly. It says here that he also didn't use Rohypnol. If he wanted to take drugs, he would have simply taken his choice of drug, which everybody knows, which he would always have had a way to manage to get a hold of. Something else he was familiar with, so they're already raising suspicion, like why he was drinking when he never drinks, champagne at that, and why these pills that people are saying that wasn't his regular routine. So it says also, quote, Courtney had publicly stated that she woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning to find him unconscious. Although the hotel has just clearly stated that the call from an ambulance was logged at 6:30 a.m. If both statements are true, why would she wait so long? Courtney has also stated that she found him, he had his coat on, and there was a note written in one hand and a bundle of cash in the other. So when she found him, he's laying there. He's got his coat on, cash, note. What it says, was he running away? Also confirmed is that he had a bloody nose, with speculation that someone had pinched it to compel him to open his mouth so that the combination of alcohol and pills could be forced down his throat. And this was the case. There could only be 2 suspects, the wife and Callie. So the thing about that pill that was there is it makes you're blacked out. That these are the pills that everyone, warns their children of, like, don't take a drink randomly from anybody. Like, it has no taste and you're just incapacitated, basically. So shortly before this, Kurt had been in contact with their lawyer, Rosemary Carroll. She has confirmed that he called her wanting to change his will. And actually, he didn't even have a will written up at the time. So he wants to make it. And he's saying that he wants to make sure, when he divorces Courtney, that everything, including his royalties, goes to their daughter. And he had already expressed to the lawyer, too, that he was considering giving up the music business. In fact, many sources have agreed that this was the case. He was apparently making plans for the future. So isn't it strange timing for an overdose to occur? That letter very well could have been him. And I think it was saying to Courtney, we're done. I want a divorce. It's not fun for me anymore, type of talk. So they had already had a prenuptial agreement. Like, Courtney thought that she was going to be the famous one because she was more up and coming at the time than Kurt. But obviously, once Kurt took off, he left her in the dust. So that's why they had that prenup, because Courtney was protecting her royalties. Well, come to find out, Kurt didn't need them anyways. He ends up making it all. So they have a prenup, which is a problem if they get divorced, obviously, because once they get divorced, the terms of a prenup is you get your half, I get my half. And, I'm assuming that Kurt's half was a lot more at that point. And yes, Mrs. Kurt Cobain, that's what it is, Rohypnol. Yep. All right. So that, it's saying they already had a prenuptial agreement, so she wouldn't be entitled to any of his earnings unless he died before completing the changes or writing the will. He didn't have the opportunity to do that before he died. So, guess who benefited and got everything after he died? Which can lead to our one subject we're going to do on its own, which is the motive. So the overdose left him in a coma for 20 hours, with rumors circulating that Kurt Cobain had died. When he woke, he had no memory of what happened to him, none, which is typical for the drug that was used, the sedative with the champagne. At this time, it was described as an accidental overdose. If you find media sources talking about this event before his death, everything will say accidental overdose, accident, took too much of this and that is what the doctor says. And that is what the media was saying before Courtney respun it. All right, so we can talk about the domestic dispute real quick too, because all these events lead up to it being convenient for Courtney to keep spinning things the way that she is. Thank you, B. Wayne. Have a safe trip. We'll talk soon. Anybody that I missed in chat, thanks for being here. All right, so after Kurt and Courtney returned home from Rome, their relationship declined rapidly. Police were called to their home by Courtney when she told them Kurt had locked himself in the bathroom closet. There's different theories or stories, with a gun and was suicidal. However, he had no gun when the police arrived, and his story was simply that he was trying to get away from her, which I can definitely picture happening. He insisted that he had no intention to harm himself, although guns were seized at the house. That's just typical protocol anytime that there's like a DV situation. And that's why he ends up getting the gun again, because he needed protection for his daughter. And, you know, it's just, if in case people are listening that aren't from around like where Kurt was, I guess it's just very common. And it wasn't seen as unusual to have the guns. So afterwards, Courtney arranged an intervention for Kurt. So this is after the domestic dispute. And she said that his drug stuff was out of control. He invited a bunch of members of like the management team and all that, and they just did an intervention. And she just threatened to take away access to the daughter. And then that's when he goes to rehab, Exodus, and right beforehand he had bought the gun. And it was in Dylan's name, like we had said earlier. He told Dylan that he needed it for protection. He feared intruders in his home. Kurt also told Dylan that if he bought one in his name, he believed that the cops would take it. So that's where we will kind of leave everything for this time. Hello, thanks for being here. Did anyone want to ask anything or give their opinion on anything so far tonight? There's going to be a lot of separate lives, I think, for this. It's just easier to kind of go through it that way. And then I'm going to be reading that book and then going through each chapter. Yep. Yeah, she was setting up everything beforehand, the master. Absolutely. And it's what's so creepy. And you'll see the way that she acts after everything. And it's just disturbing. So when they got married, Nirvana wasn't famous yet. They were on the map. Like, they were going to be up and coming. And apparently that's how Courtney was. She just jumped from one huge talented guy to the next, and she just had like an eye for knowing talent and the best. Like, he was a good musician. Like, he wasn't just a lead singer of this band. Like, she knew that he was going to be something big. So I think that she just has a really good way to kind of scan people and know how to use them. This Callie person who was their nanny and there the night that he OD'd in Rome, he was also at the house when Kurt's dead body was in the greenhouse. It's just very weird coincidence like that are lining up with that Cali guy. And yeah, so we have suspect number one, the wife, and then in my opinion right now, with my research, Cali is suspect number two. And the thing about the wife is, if anyone's ever studied Charles Manson, you'll know that he got his groupies and his minions and people around him to do what he wanted, and he used drugs and sex and gave them a place to live, and kept them comfortable, and as soon as you don't have those needs, you're obviously fiending, sick, homeless. And I've noticed that Courtney Love sort of works the same way. She has these people around her, and I guess she would supply them herself. She had no problem spending her own money on it, and then just keeping people in control with it. It's very sick. It's very sick. CDT, this is interesting. It seems like there's more to. It's so, yep. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex. So what are you guys thinking right now? Very manipulative for sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to go over right now pertaining to this subject, but we will continue our research on Scott Peterson on this channel and CDT's channel. And we are also actively watching the Summer Wells. All that coverage is on CDT. She's got all the updates and everything you need on that. And we're also doing Watts. So that is going to be something that we're always going to be looking into, and find that on CDT and here randomly probably. Yeah, it's bad. And I've got some stuff that I want to show you guys. I have a lot of stuff I'm gathering, screen recordings, all that, pictures. Such an interesting but sad story. Yeah, it is. It's very sad. And it's almost like so obvious. Like, we need this case reopened, 100%. All right. Well, I guess thank you for jumping on to this stream after the other one got shut down. I hope that it went well anyways. I hope I conveyed my message. And tune in. I'll probably have short videos going out on this case. And then I want to keep doing some deep dive lives. So keep a lookout for when we're going to go live again. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to get there too. There's a lot. But thank you, everyone. So I'll talk to you guys soon.